they were involved with another person. Not because you were not good enough, not because you were easy to replace, but because something inside them was not ready to face what was real and genuine. And now they are holding a message they can no longer ignore or keep buried inside. What they want to say is not simple. It is not comfortable either, because while they were physically present somewhere else, emotionally a part of them never fully left you behind. And that truth has now become something they cannot deny anymore. Have you ever felt like a connection never truly ended? Even when everything on the surface suggested it was over, something still remained unfinished, quietly living in the background of your thoughts all this time. That is exactly where they have been existing. Not fully in the past, not fully in the present either, but in a space where truth was delayed instead of erased. Because real connection does not disappear easily. It waits, it stays, and eventually it asks to be seen clearly, without confusion or denial. If you want to understand why they are now carrying this urgent inner message after being with someone else, pay attention closely. They chose what felt safe instead of what felt true for them at that time. They moved toward what felt familiar rather than what was quietly calling them from deep within. And they held on to what was easier to avoid instead of what could have actually changed their life in a real and lasting way. In doing so, they convinced themselves that comfort was the same thing as peace. Even though something inside them kept questioning that decision, they stayed where everything felt predictable, where emotions did not demand too much, and where they could remain in control without being challenged. But deep inside, there was always a quiet awareness that something more meaningful had been left behind, something that would have required more courage than they were willing to give at that point in their life. And once that awareness started to settle within them, it did not fade or disappear. It stayed. It remained present in moments they could not distract themselves from. It showed up in quiet evenings, in the pauses between conversations, and in the space where their thoughts became louder than everything around them. The feeling never demanded attention, but it also refused to disappear. It stayed in a steady way, reminding them that something important had been left unresolved for too long. No matter how much they tried to move forward, this awareness stayed behind everything they did, quietly shaping how they experienced their days. In the silence between daily routines and in the repetition of days that began to blur together, they slowly started to realize how little life was truly asking from them in that state. Everything felt manageable, but also limited, as if growth had quietly been replaced by routine. They began to notice how much of their real self they had been holding back, just to keep things simple and avoid complications. They avoided deeper questions, avoided stronger emotions, and avoided situations that might challenge who they really were inside. Over time, this created a distance within themselves, a feeling of being present in their life but not fully connected to it. And that quiet distance eventually became impossible to ignore. What they had with the other person may have looked stable on the outside, but it did not carry the same depth, meaning, or emotional weight. What they shared with you carried something different, something that went deeper and stayed longer within them. And things that are truly meaningful do not disappear just because someone walks away from them for a while. They remain in the background of the mind, waiting quietly to be acknowledged without pressure. They do not demand attention, but they also do not fade away. Over time, these feelings rise again, not in loud or dramatic ways, but through subtle and persistent reminders that something real once existed between you. At some point, they stopped pretending, not in one sudden moment, not through a dramatic realization, but slowly and honestly, in a way that felt uncomfortable but true. They admitted to themselves that they were never fully alive in the situation they chose at that time. Something important was always missing, even when they tried not to look at it directly. They also realized that no matter how much they tried to convince themselves they had moved on, a part of them was still emotionally unfinished with you. This awareness did not come easily. It came with quiet honesty that forced them to face their own decisions without excuses or avoidance. They came to understand that they never truly gave that connection a fair chance in the past. Not because it lacked meaning, but because it required courage they were not ready for at that stage of their journey. The kind of courage that asks a person to show up without protection, to risk rejection, and to allow themselves to feel deeply without knowing the outcome. Instead of stepping into that space, they stepped away from it, choosing safety over emotional growth at that moment. And now, that choice carries a message they could not express before. It is not perfect. It is not shaped to sound right. It is simply a quiet truth within them that cannot be ignored anymore. They now see what you represented in their life with clearer understanding. They recognize that what they were avoiding was not only you, but also parts of themselves they were not ready to face honestly. And that realization has changed something within them in a lasting way. It has changed how they see their past, their choices, and what truly mattered. It is not loud, but it is permanent. Because once someone clearly sees their own avoidance, they cannot unsee it. They cannot go back to pretending it did not matter. Whether they reach out or stay silent, something within them has already changed. The illusion they were holding onto has broken, and that brings both discomfort and clarity at the same time. It forces them to sit with the truth of what they avoided and to carry the emotional weight of that awareness. There is no easy escape from it once it becomes clear in their mind. What you need to understand most is this. None of this was ever about your worth or value. It was always about their emotional readiness and their ability to face what they felt at that time in their life. You were not replaced by someone better. You simply crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the capacity to meet you where you stood emotionally. And now they are living with the outcome of their own choices, carrying the weight of what they avoided, delayed, and left unresolved. Whether they speak it or not, this is what remains within them. Not a dramatic return, not an immediate confession, but a slow realization settling deeper over time. You were real. And real connections leave marks that cannot be erased by distraction, convenience, or avoidance. Their choices were never a reflection of your value, but a reflection of their fear and emotional limitations at that time. The hesitation, the distance, and the inconsistency all came from fear, not from a lack of understanding of what you meant to them. And now that fear has been faced internally, it has left them more aware, more honest, and more conscious of what their actions truly cost them emotionally. They now carry a clarity that feels heavy and undeniable, something that cannot be softened by excuses anymore. In that clarity, they can see what they ignored, what they postponed, and what cannot simply be undone. They see the impact of their silence and inconsistency on someone who gave real honesty, presence, and emotional effort. This awareness does not bring comfort. It brings understanding that stays. It does not rush away or fade quickly. Instead, it sits within them, reminding them of every moment they chose distance over honesty and avoidance over truth. This is not a request for anything to return. It is not asking for reconciliation or another chance. It is simply a realization that comes after reflection and emotional growth on their side. They now recognize the courage you showed by being emotionally open, by asking for honesty, and by refusing anything less than real effort. And in that recognition, both respect and regret exist together. Respect for your emotional strength, and regret for not meeting you with the same level of courage when it mattered most. That regret is not loud. It is quiet, internal, and constant beneath their thoughts. It appears in late-night reflection, in silent moments, and in memories they cannot fully push away. It reminds them of the chances they let pass, the honesty they avoided, and the connection they did not protect. This feeling never fully disappears. It stays steady, shaping how they now understand their past. What they want you to understand most is that this is not about missing comfort or familiarity. it goes much deeper than that. It is about finally recognizing what real connection feels like and understanding that it cannot simply be replaced or ignored. In every decision they made, a part of them was still aware of you. That awareness never fully disappeared, it only grew stronger over time. Now it has become a clarity they cannot avoid anymore in their daily life. They are not asking for forgiveness and not trying to force any outcome. They are simply acknowledging what they now understand. This is their truth, expressed quietly and honestly, without exaggeration or performance. There is no attempt to rewrite the past, only acceptance of what it was. They are no longer running from what they once avoided. They are no longer hiding behind silence or distraction. They have faced their hesitation, their emotional distance, and their fear of vulnerability. And through that process, they now clearly understand something important. The person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you. That truth now carries emotional weight that cannot be ignored. It has reshaped how they understand connection, honesty, and emotional presence. Even if nothing changes externally, even if nothing is acted upon, this understanding will remain within them. They now see you clearly, not as an option, not as something replaceable, but as a meaningful connection they were not ready for at that time. And that understanding will continue to stay with them, shaping how they move forward into future emotional experiences. What comes next is no longer guided by confusion or uncertainty for them. It becomes about conscious choice, your clarity, and your ability to stay grounded in your own truth and self-respect as you move forward in life. Take a moment and sit with this fully. Do not rush past it. Allow yourself to feel the weight of what has already passed and what may still be possible ahead in your journey. Let it settle in your mind and in your heart without resistance. Trust your instincts, your inner voice, and the strength you have built over time through your own lived experiences and lessons. You have not reached this point by accident, but through growth, reflection, and awareness. You already know what feels right for you deep inside. You already understand what you truly deserve in your life and in your connections. And now, with full awareness of both their growth and your own personal growth, the next step can be taken with clarity, calmness, confidence, and steady self-respect that does not shake easily. On the surface, someone may appear fully committed elsewhere or focused in another direction in life completely. Everything may look settled from the outside, but emotionally and psychologically, a part of them can still remain connected to something they never fully understood or fully resolved in the past. This is not about betrayal in a simple or shallow way, but about the deeper and more complex nature of human attachment, fear, emotional development, and personal growth that unfolds slowly over time. What makes this situation powerful is the role that fear plays in shaping decisions that people often do not fully understand while they are making them in real time. Fear quietly influences choices more than most people are aware of in their everyday lives, shaping direction without loud explanation. Fear of closeness, fear of vulnerability, fear of losing control, and even fear of facing one's own emotional truth can lead someone to divide their attention or avoid what they genuinely feel inside their heart. In those moments, they may move toward other connections, not because of real or deep love, but because of comfort, distraction, familiarity, or the need to avoid deeper emotional confrontation that feels overwhelming. At the same time, the person they were once deeply connected to remains present in their thoughts. Even if they do not speak about it openly with others, that presence continues through memories, quiet comparisons, and unspoken thoughts that stay with them over time. It shapes their emotional world in ways that are not always visible from the outside, but are strongly felt within their inner heart and emotional awareness. Regret becomes a meaningful and powerful part of this process when someone avoids emotional truth or delays a real and honest connection. They eventually begin to feel the result of that avoidance in deeper ways. This realization often arrives quietly during reflection, in moments of stillness, or when there are no distractions left to escape their own thoughts. It does not always come loudly, but it comes steadily and undeniably. It is not about simply missing someone on a surface emotional level alone. It is about clearly seeing the choices that were made, the fear that guided those choices, and the missed chance to fully value a real emotional connection that was present and real. That understanding does not come quickly or easily for them. It builds slowly over time, becoming stronger with each moment of honesty they allow themselves to face. And once it is fully seen, it stays with them, shaping how they move forward and how they understand what truly matters in their life going ahead. This kind of regret is powerful because it brings a person face to face with accountability, humility, and real inner growth that lasts beyond temporary emotions. It does not allow easy escape or quick distraction from the truth anymore. Instead, it asks them to look directly at their own choices and the impact those choices created on other people and on their own emotional path. At the same time, growth is never one-sided or limited to only one person alone. In this journey, while one individual is learning to face fear, accept responsibility, and understand emotional truth more clearly, the other person is also changing in their own way, with strength and awareness. They are learning to set stronger boundaries to protect their peace and to value their self-respect more deeply than before, even when that requires emotional distance for a period of time. This creates a situation where both individuals continue to evolve, often at different speeds, but still moving in similar directions internally over time. When clarity finally arrives for one person, the other may already have developed a deeper sense of strength, awareness, and emotional understanding in their own path. This shift ensures that any future interaction, if it ever takes place, is no longer based on confusion, emotional need, or uncertainty at all. Instead, it becomes rooted in conscious choice, self-awareness, and emotional maturity that feels stable and right. The dynamic changes because both individuals are no longer standing in the same emotional place they once were, even if the memory of that connection still exists within them. Even when someone appears to move forward on the surface, parts of their emotional world can remain connected to what was never fully understood or fully resolved. That original connection can continue to influence how they see happiness, meaning, and emotional fulfillment in their daily life. This is why their external behavior can sometimes feel disconnected from their internal reality in quiet and subtle ways. There is often a silent contrast between what they show to others and what they actually feel inside their heart. This contrast is not always intentional, but it becomes more noticeable over time as awareness begins to grow and deeper questions begin to surface naturally within them. At the same time, the person who once asked for honesty and emotional presence is also growing and changing with time. They are not standing still or waiting in the same emotional place anymore. They are becoming more grounded, more self-aware, and more certain of their own value as a person. They are learning to trust themselves, to listen to their instincts, and to move forward with greater clarity in each step they take. This growth ensures that if any reconnection ever happens, it will not come from emotional dependence or confusion, but from a place of strength, balance, and clear understanding of what truly matters most in life. This shared growth becomes important because it protects both individuals from repeating the same patterns that once created distance between them. It allows any future interaction to be based on awareness instead of confusion, and on emotional maturity instead of instability. Another important truth that becomes clear through this process is that emotional presence goes far beyond physical closeness alone. Even when someone is physically with another person, emotionally a part of them can remain connected to an unresolved bond from the past. This presence is quiet but steady, appearing in thoughts, memories, and comparisons that happen without conscious effort. In the end, everything comes back to awareness, growth, and truth that lasts over time. What was once unclear has now become visible. What was once avoided has now been understood more fully by them. They have faced their fear, their hesitation, and the choices they made along the way, and that has changed how they see everything in their life moving forward. At the same time, you have grown into someone who no longer depends on confusion or mixed signals to feel certain about your worth as a person. You have learned to protect your peace, to trust your instincts, and to stand firmly in your self-respect without needing validation from anyone else around you. What this creates is not a story about return or loss, but a clear understanding of what was real and what it required from both sides. You represented something genuine, something meaningful, and something that asked for courage to hold. That truth has now been recognized, even if it came later than expected for them. But your journey does not pause for someone else's realization at any time. You continue forward with clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of what you deserve and what you will no longer accept in your life. So what remains is simple and clear for you. Stay grounded in your truth and trust the growth you have gone through with patience and awareness. Let your decisions come from clarity, not from old emotions or uncertainty that may still linger in the background. What is meant to align with you will meet you with the same honesty, presence, and effort that you have always carried inside yourself. And anything that cannot meet you there will naturally fall away without force, struggle, or confusion. Like this video, comment which part touched you the most, and subscribe to receive more messages about emotional truth, personal growth, and self-worth.